Shocking video of a racist attack.
Vaughxx Booker was at Lake Monroe when 5 white men pinned him to a tree, beat him, threatened to lynch him.
Made statements about white power.
They were being very violent. I feel that they were very intoxicated.
Call me nappy-headed.
And threatened to get a noose.
You're hearing your own potential death being narrated in front of you.
I didn't think that I would be held against a tree and threatened with a noose in modern day, America.
Shake your head at me and go. Get the fuck out!
My name is Vaughxx. I'm a Monroe County Human Rights Commissioner, and I chair the county's Affordable Housing Commission. We would have been somewhere in this area back along the trailway. I had been invited to a Facebook event that was about watching the lunar eclipse. I had made a new friend who was new to town, was very much into kayaking and wilderness activities.
Vaughxx and I came up through this exact way. This was our first time hiking to the site.
We encounter a gentleman who has a bit of an oversized Confederate flag hat on.
He was asking what we were doing back here and said something about it being private property. I remember when he asked us if we needed a ride, we were both like, no, we're cool, we'll just hike. And he was like, no, let me give you guys a ride up to Max's campground. I know where you are. I think he was intentionally trying to be intimidating to Vaughxx.
Maybe a half hour later, another guy comes walking in, and it was Steven. And he tells us, hey, I was walking over here and got harassed by these guys.
I think he said they tried to charge some type of toll pass. Maybe it was a beer. What had really caught my attention was him saying that, they were chanting white power at him.
Vaughxx hears that, and he's like, I think I want to go talk to these guys. He was never like, I'm gonna go beat some ass or anything. He's like, oh, that's not cool. I've got to go talk to him.
I had just finished restorative justice and conflict mediation training through a local Center for Justice and Mediation. So I feel qualified to have a conversation with someone who might have different viewpoints with me, might be a racist.
Our group, Max and I, were like, man, let's just let it slide. No big deal. We don't want to have any issues. But Vaughxx was determined.
The three of us weren't going to let him go alone, so I decided to go with him. So we walked down to where their boat was docked, and I stood back a little ways, and Vaughxx went up there and talked to, I believe he was talking to Sean Purdy. Vaughxx had his hands in his pockets the entire time. He was, very calm. The people on the boat became very heated. They started flailing their arms around, started raising their voices, started being obviously irritated.
And at that point, it's just best to walk away. I hear footsteps quickly approaching behind me.
Purdy ran up and attacked him from behind, shoved him, and as Vaughxx was turning around, the guy punched him in the face.
I come around this corner, and I see a melee.
I ran up behind him and tried to pull one guy off, and he turned around and clocked me in the face and knocked me to the ground.
Before the phones got out, that's when all this major stuff was said. That's when they were talking about getting a rope, lynching him.
They deny they said that, and you're saying you heard them say that?
100%. They did. They absolutely did.
And so you heard them call Vaughxx a nigger?
Yeah. I heard him, I heard that in the background. One of the guys that had a hold of him looked at me and said, you guys get out of here, leave the boy with us. My first thought was pull out my phone for protection. It was like a shield. Let him go, dude. Let him go. Let him go, please. Let him go. Please let him go.
I don't know if I'm going to die, and I don't know if these all-white folks are going to leave me and save themselves.
Let him go, man. I just want you to let him go. Let him go. And I get up to him. A couple guys advance towards me, swing at me. Shake your head at me and go. Get the fuck out. I put the phone in my pocket. I advance. Set my hand on the guy's shoulder. He turns on Purdy's. He turns around and looks at me. I say, let him go. And he lets him go, and Vaughxx gets up, and we start walking away.
These folks continue to follow us and to taunt us.
Yeah, you are.
Jerry, go. Jerry.
He's a person, dude. Oh, he's a person. You guys invaded us. We were having a great time. You invaded us. No one invaded you. You stupid fucking liberal fucks. Happy about this?
What do you really want to call me?
You nappy-headed bitch.
What do you want to call me?
About this? You with your 5 white friends.
We eventually got to our camp.
It's best to just go ahead and call the police. Well, 911 transfers us to the Department of Natural Resources that has jurisdiction in State Forest.
We're sitting there for a while, and eventually the DNR show up on a boat.
We were initially trying to tell the DNR that they should arrest these people for violent assault. They said they didn't have enough evidence to make any arrests, which is absolute bullshit.
More than a week later, no arrests have been made in response.
Protesters were out in Bloomington.
They have enough information. They had enough information that night, and it is time to arrest these folks.
The car hit 2 protesters as the demonstration was ending.
And today, for the first time, we heard from the people accused of this attack.
The truth has not come out.
Attorneys say Booker was the instigator and agitator.
This doesn't happen if he doesn't go back, which is really how the whole thing started. Carolyn McCord, the daughter of the owner of the property, he accosted her and was ranting and raving and declaring that he was a public official and that he was going to levy fines, was going to ruin her lives, was in her face. That's when Mr. Purdy steps in to get space to back him off his girlfriend. Mr. Booker punched him 3 times. He was in the hospital a couple days later with internal bleeding. And so he restrained him.
What was bleeding?
Oh, I don't know. Something internal, something on the inside.
Well, what else are they going to say? Well, they can't say I have an alibi. I mean, they have to come up with some excuse for their behavior. Sean Purdy did not indicate that he was struck, ever, in that first interview. If you've been victimized and you were punched in the face 3 times, that's the first thing you're going to tell a police officer. He punched me 3 times in the face. Instead, Purdy denied any physical altercation on him. And then it was days later, after he realized how much trouble he was going to be in when that video went viral. Oh, that's right, he punched me.
Even if noose was spoken, there's no rope, there's no evidence of rope. Even if it's racist, it doesn't happen if he doesn't go back.
The intent of going down there that day was to see if we could just simply be neighbors who could coexist and recognize each other's humanity and our shared right to space.
I think we're living in a generation where things have shifted. You look across the spectrum, you see far more biracial relationships. So African Americans are far more comfortable having conversations with their Caucasian counterparts. Back in the day when I was growing up, my parents and my grandparents would have told me, don't you go back, don't put yourself at risk. But we're no longer in that day and age as people see themselves as equal, so they're gonna go back and have conversations.
The DNR basically suggested charges all around, including against Vaughxx Booker.
Isn't it always the black man's fault? Isn't it always he was, the mere audacity of his existence provokes white people?
Let's be real. There is nothing that could be more American than charging a black man in his own attempted lynching.
Young prosecutor locally in Bloomington with all the public officials already telling her what kind of case it was.
I'm going to cooperate fully to try to make sure that justice is done.
I stand with Vaughxx, and I will be demanding justice.
The fact that she chose to charge one and not the other, to me, was a response to the public outcry rather than a dispassionate review of the facts applied to the law. And so I wanted a prosecutor that would do just that. I think she figured out that, man, this is not going to go well for me.
I would expect that with the special prosecutor, special judge, somebody's going to need some more time, and it'll get bumped down the road. We're going to kick that can down the road. They do that in order to, the community has forgotten about it. It will not have as much public attention. You know, it's going to get less media coverage. Maybe it gets a story the day of the trial or something, but they just elongate that process.
Some in the black community feel when there's a clear hate crime committed against blacks that the play is to demonize the black victim and then stretch the case out until the public forgets about it.
That's certainly happened. And so those feelings and thoughts are based on past experiences. And I can't criticize people who feel that way just because it has something that has occurred.
The FBI is now investigating this as a possible hate crime.
You nappy-headed bitch! You happy with your 5 license?
I'm confused as to why there's a question that it's a hate crime. And once again, as disturbing as that video is, I'm very glad there is a video.
Significantly disappointing to a lot of people, especially here in the state of Indiana, is there are no hate crimes. There's not a hate crime statute. There's a hate crime enhancement where maybe you get a little bit more punishment, but there's no specific hate crime statute. And we in Indiana are way behind the times in terms of being willing to recognize that issue.
Yeah, it hurt me. It definitely was a painful thing. Even though this is a moment for somebody else, a story that they'll see in the news, for me, it has been something that has affected every day of my life since. Justice doesn't move as swiftly as we like. I think we all know that if it would have been a group of black men that attacked a lone white guy in the woods or wherever, that they would have been under the jail and stayed there. Prisons, incarceration, doesn't help our society. They don't make our communities safer. They harm the families of the folks that have been incarcerated, and it's turned into an industry of oppression. It is the modern translation of slavery. So it's antithetical to everything I believe in as an activist. What I do believe in is accountability.
I'd like to see them come and try to help Vaughx feel better. I'd like them to listen to him in a controlled setting with professional mediators. And I think Vaughx could listen to them. So in my perfect world, I would like to see this resolved through restorative justice.
The model of restorative justice, you have normally you have a clear perpetrator and a clear victim. The kid that tags a shopkeeper's wall with graffiti. So you make the kid clean it, wash it, paint it, meet together. You help the kid understand what was wrong with that.
I've been a believer in restorative justice for a long time.
We have all agreed in spirit to explore this. Whether we can accomplish it, nobody knows, because nobody's done anything like this.
I think Mr. Purdy understands that it has higher value. Mr. Purdy suffered because he's been labeled a racist. Go to trial, get found not guilty, that stink is still on him. I can't make that go away.
If they want to sit down and they want to be serious, I can do that.
If we can work it out in Indiana amongst these drastically oppositional forces, then anybody can work it out.